Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's Joel Bear, and I am back with sports journalist from CBS, Mr. Ben Jacobs. How you doing? You okay?
I'm good, Joel. How are you?
I'm all right, man. It's been a while. We were talking a lot during the transfer period, during the summer, but there's quite a lot that's changed since then. Arsenal are now a top club again. You know, great preseason. Man United are on the rise. Liverpool have fallen off. City are doing what City do. So yeah, really interesting stuff. I want to talk about contract situations right about now. And surprise, surprise, I'm really concerned with Arsenal's contractual situations. We have Martinelli, Saka, and Saliba that we're going to be looking at. For Arsenal fans, it's pretty scary because we could be in a situation where, like our top rising stars go, within a season or two. So can you talk to us about what their contractual situations are like and how Arsenal plan to move going forward?
Let me reassure you, Joel, and Arsenal fans, Halloween is over. There's no need to be scared. We're entering into the festive period. So it's time for gifts, and that includes contracts as well. And Arsenal fully intend to get signatures from all three. Of course, Gabriel, the defender, has already signed as well. So really the strategy was to get a quartet of signatures, of which one is down and three are to go. So if we take them one by one, Saliba is the most complex simply because there's the least time remaining. And also, when he was at Marseille, he was really enjoying life in France and he wasn't entirely sure what his role would be at Arsenal. And then thankfully, from Mikel Arteta's point of view, he returned to Arsenal. And at that point, there was a huge uncertainty around his future. And Marseille genuinely believed with Champions League football at that point that they could persuade him to return. And there was a real feeling amongst certain senior figures at Marseille that they didn't do enough. But of course, Arsenal have a different perspective. And they say very clearly that Marseille were never going to find the funds and be able to lure him away, and that he was going to be integrated, as we've now seen, into the Arsenal starting lineup. And he's been brilliant and consistent, and it's a high priority now to get him to sign. But the fact of the matter is that Saliba is still open to potential incoming offers, particularly from Paris Saint-Germain, who are watching the player very closely. So Arsenal feel that they'll get this one over the line, but there will be other suitors. And that's what makes it a little bit more complex, because naturally, with time ticking, the player has a little bit more leverage. But Arsenal very much feel like that one is going to get done. And then with the other two, they're even more confident. With Martinelli, it's more of a wage issue, and he would like to be on a parity with players like Gabriel Jesus and also Thomas Partey. But he's in majestic form. He's only one goal away in the Premier League from his entire tally last season. And he's going to grow from strength to strength. And he's playing with freedom and confidence. And Arsenal are not planning for any kind of exit, because the feeling at the player's side is very positive with the football club. But he's one of those players that's not going to be in a rush. And I think you'll find this with all three of them, that they're quite happy to let the year end if nothing is agreed, and then take it into the January window. And one of the reasons for that is just tactical as well, because as soon as a window opens, the agent can be using active clubs that could actually put in an offer now, or potentially be talking now for the summer, and they can use that to get the best possible deal back at Arsenal. So we're going to hear the word leverage quite a lot, simply because the agents are trying to get that wage up for Martinelli. But it's another one that Arsenal expect to get done. And then with Saka, I would use the word untouchable.
Wait, Ben, before you go on to Saka, you said Martinelli wants to be like on an equal level, or around near and around Gabriel Jesus' Partey. What numbers are they again, please, for those watching who might not know?
Well, I think wages are hotly debated, but what we're looking at is a bracket of at least, let's say, 220 to 250,000. And the agent's naturally going to go high and quite inflated to try and get somewhere close to that number. When Gabriel Jesus joined, some people said he was on an even higher package. And we know that Arsenal are not paying the same crazy money as some of their rivals across Europe and within the Premier League. But it's not so much about the number as a base parity, and then the incentivization can take it what appears to be sky high. And of course, the other thing with Martinelli to point out is not in the same position as Saliba. There's time left on the contract. So Arsenal don't need to move imminently now either, because we're not talking about 2023 when that contract expires. And that, again, is what makes Saliba more complicated. And then, unless you've got any other follow-ups, I can then go on to Saka.
Yeah, no, Saka, please, let's go on to it.
So Saka, I think Arsenal see as untouchable. And the reason for that is because the player is not only happy at the football club and in imperious form, but in addition to that, has real appreciation for the Arsenal family and culture, and the way that after that penalty miss and all the horrible abuse that he received, the club and the community around North London really put their arm metaphorically around him, and even physically as well. And the fact that they looked out for his well-being has not been forgotten, and he's enjoying his football. So the only complication and caveat over Saka is that there will almost certainly be a clause in any new deal that he signs, and I firmly believe that he will sign a new deal sooner rather than later, that allows him to still leave if Arsenal don't qualify for Champions League football. And players are doing this more and more. They're signing new deals. And when you sign a new deal, it doesn't unfortunately mean from a fan perspective that a player like Saka or any other footballer will just stay. They sign new deals for their own benefit, both at Arsenal, but with other doors still being kept open. And you'll see this as well with, let's say, Nkunku, who Chelsea are trying to get over the line. You sign a new deal with a realistic release clause that is under market value in his case. So then he knows he's signing, but someone can still easily trigger the release clause. And then you get a short term, in his case, longer term in Saka's case, pay rise as part of the deal. And then if you leave, any other suitor has to match that. So Saka can basically have his cake and eat it. He can plan for Arsenal in the long run. And there's no indication, by the way, when you speak to people close to the player, that he's thinking about a Manchester City or a Chelsea. But those clubs are looking at him. They are considering whether there's any window of opportunity. Liverpool as well, exactly. You're absolutely right. So there's a whole host of suitors prowling, and why not? Because he's a world-class player, and at the moment, what he's on allows other clubs to feel like he could be a bargain, regardless of any fee that they have to pay. But Saka's not thinking that way. He's thinking about having an out if things change at Arsenal, but he's fully focused on Arsenal. And Arsenal are not formative in these contract talks. They're in a back and forth. They have effectively a proposal just about ready. They've already done the due diligence behind it. They've got a fair idea of what Saka will want, what kind of terms, including that likely Champions League exit clause. So this is the deal that I expect to get done, but it's one of those that will be done to benefit Arsenal and tie him down in the short term, but to allow Saka options if things at Arsenal don't progress in their current manner. And luckily for Arsenal, of course, they're flying, and there's no indication that the project isn't going to go from strength to strength. But if they end up in a season or two, or even at the end of this season, potentially outside of Champions League football, then Saka will still have that window of opportunity to go elsewhere. So it's win-win from the player's point of view. But make no mistake, right now, January, even next summer, Arsenal see Saka as completely untouchable. They don't see any club in the short term being able to come in and lure him away from Arsenal, because he's happy at the football club. He's focused on the football club, and the football club are flying.
Yes. Finally, Mikel Arteta. Now, you know, Arsenal fans have had a mixed relationship with him. Some fans last season were even calling for him to be sacked. This season, you won't hear such a thing. He's been absolutely fantastic. We can only respect what he's done for the team. I am hearing links with Barcelona, though. What's going on? What's his contract situation? And what is all this Barcelona chat?
So my understanding is that at the Arsenal side, Mikel Arteta only sees his future at Arsenal. He would not leave for Barcelona if the job was offered to him today or over the summer, period. And Arsenal fans can be very reassured by that. Longer than that, obviously the whole dynamic can change. And if Barcelona are flying and Arsenal are not, then any manager looks at their options. But therein lies the paradox, right? That if Arteta succeeds at Arsenal, then he's worthy of any top job. And if he's succeeding at Arsenal, he wants to stay at Arsenal. If Arteta falls from grace at Arsenal and Barcelona resurrect themselves, then why does Arteta enter the conversation for the Barcelona job? And it reminds me, weirdly, even though it might seem like a strange comparison, of Brendan Rodgers when Leicester were flying and the Manchester United job was vacant. And everyone said, well, he's got Leicester close to Champions League football. What about Manchester United? And then, of course, he was nowhere near the conversation because Leicester went into decline and Manchester United turned in another direction. And then at the Barcelona end, it's important to stress that Joan Laporta loves a mind game, loves dropping a name out there, loves creating smoke screens. And Barcelona on this front are very clear that they believe Xavi is the right man for the job. They're not ranking another manager ahead of Xavi. And that's not just because he'll be given time and patience because he was a Barcelona legend. It's because when you talk to the players and also you look at Xavi's role in recruitment for Rafinha, for Jules Koundé, Barcelona were very impressed by how hands-on Xavi was and how essential he was to beating other suitors to those names. So, of course, things are not going that well anyway for Barcelona on the field, disastrous in Europe and not exactly amazing in La Liga either, but it's going to take time. So I don't see Barcelona getting rid of Xavi. I don't see Barcelona being able to get somebody like Mikel Arteta. And I think the other thing to bear in mind is just that Barcelona need a period of stability now anyway. If they continually chop and change and they're out of the Champions League and their finances remain a mess, then they're not going to move in any kind of positive directions. They need Xavi to stay, and the board really would be under huge scrutiny if they got rid of them because they've backed him so heavily at this point. So I think Arsenal fans can rest easy, really. I've only brought good news. I told you we're entering into the festive period, Joel, and here I am saying I think all four, including Gabriel, who's already signed, will end up renewing at Arsenal. And I don't think that Arteta is going to be lured away by any job in world football at the moment because of how well Arsenal are currently doing.
Well, I'll tell you what, mate, for myself and Archie, who's helping produce the show, you sound like our Father Christmas and all Arsenal fans. Ben, thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to having you again. It's always great to catch up. And I'll tell you what, I've enjoyed this review. And please, let's stay in touch. Let's get you back on 5. I'm looking forward to it. For those watching, please make sure you follow Ben. All these social details are in the description. Make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you watch our Viable 5 episode that we dropped earlier this week. And we will have more videos coming up soon. Peace.